right, everyone, welcome to homework 1 on unit 1, which is percents. So if I think about what a percent is, let's think about it as literally how it's written, which is per cent, whoops, which looks like 1 over 100. So it's literally percent per 100. So when I think about that, that means that 2% is really 0.02 because it's 2 out of 100. So to go from a percentage over to a fraction, put the percent over 100, and then to go from that fraction to a decimal, you would go 1, 2 over, so 1, 2 decimal wise, and we could convert back and forth. So for example, say that a student starts out with a score of 24 on a test, and you might think, well, what does that mean? That's not a very good score on a test. But now we find out that you got a 24 out of 32. So if I come over here, that means 24 out of 32. And if I convert that into a percentage, or if I convert that into a fraction, then it makes a little more sense, we might be able to get a better idea of the score. So to reduce the fraction, 24 and 32 both have 8 in common. So 8 times 3 and 8 times 4. And then 3/4 is a pretty common fraction that we know is equivalent to 0.75. And then again, we're going to change that over, which is about 75%. So now you did a little bit better on that test. You actually have a 75% on it. So why are these going to be important? Well, if I come over here, if I look at percentages, I don't know how many of you guys have ever watched Biggest Loser. Sorry a minute, that was not the nicest writing there. So if you've ever watched the show Biggest Loser, okay, so if I come in and you have a 400-pound man and he loses 20 pounds, he did pretty well. If you then have a 200-pound man and he loses 15, he lost less weight, but who actually lost a bigger percentage of their body weight? And that's how they usually do the winners. So this 400-pound person lost a smaller percentage versus the 200-pound. So they're really important when we're going to look at comparisons. Okay, another example, which might hold a little bit more relevance for you in school, is if you're looking for a professor and you're looking at their ratings, and last semester, a certain professor had 10 people pass and another one had 100 people pass. Which one are you going to take? At face value, you probably want to take the person that had 100. But let's say the person that had 10 out of 10. And the person that had 100 had 100 out of 200. Now you're looking at 100% versus a 50% pass rate. So again, those are going to be really important when we're talking about comparisons. All right. I'm going to scroll this down, so I'm going to clear it. So just be mindful, pause if you need it. So for example, 2. Okay, so this time we're looking at a field goal kicker for the extra point kick last minute of the Super Bowl. Very exciting. And we're trying to figure out who we would pick for that. Okay, so at first glance, Steve's made 14, Jason's made 9. So this would be a great opportunity to convert them both to percentages and figure out who has a better percentage and who you want to pick. So go ahead and pause, try it out, and then come back. Okay, so for this one, Steve So hopefully you had time. For Steve, he made 14 out of 19 of his field goal kicks. Now that's not a very easy to understand fraction, but if we go ahead and divide it on our calculator, it gives us 0.7368. And if we want to convert that to a percentage, we move our decimal over 2. So Steve has about a 73.68 or about 74% success rate for his field goals. Then if we come over to Jason, Jason has made 9 out of 12, and that's a little bit of an easier one. That's 3/4 again, which is 0.75. If you're not sure, feel free to punch it in your calculator. 1, 2, so he has a 75%. So you might decide you're going to pick Jason because he has a better percentage. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear and move this down. Okay, and then in terms of the you try, I'm going to go ahead and let you go through that. And then you can check your key with the online key and see how you're doing. And I am going to jump down to the keywords. So as I scroll down for a second, where it says keywords, we're going to use this for translating. So where it says these keywords and we have what. If you're asked what of something, what number, what this, what that, that represents your variable. So that's your unknown is that what. Okay. So in that blank, we're going to put our variable or our unknown. If we're asked what is represents equals. So I like to break the sentence apart and write at the equal sign. Whatever's on the left of the sentence, I write and then break it apart with the right side. And then of. So what percent of 20? What percent of this, of that? That means multiplication. Okay. And then when we're working with percentages, a big one I want to highlight here is that you always want to use the decimal form. Okay. A good example is if you're going to get a 20% off sale, if you did 20 times, say the item was $10, you're getting 20% off, you're paying $200 for your item. That's a terrible sale. But instead, if you change it to decimal, which would be 0.2 times 10, then you're really getting $2 off, which is a little more of a sale. Okay, so down here, what is 60% of 22? So again, what is means I'm going to do my what translates to my x, my is translates to my equal sign, what is, and then I want to convert my 60% into a decimal. So that would be 0.60. And then let me get my other color. My of means multiplication. So we're going to multiply. I'm going to use a big dot for that of 22. So this is a straight multiplication. Take 0.60 times 22 and you get approximately 13.2 as your answer. So a direct conversion over, and X is what I used for the unknown, the what. The is was the equal, 60%, 22. So just it's a straight translation. So if you feel comfortable, you might want to pause and try a few. If not, keep watching. So this next one says what. Sorry about that. So my next one says what? So what means X percent? So now I need some type of percentage in my answer of 20 is 1.93. I'm going to make a little note here that this X is going to be in percent form when I'm done, because that's how we were asked the question. So to solve this, we divide by 20, and we come up with X is equal to 0.0965. Now keep up here, we always use the decimal when we're actually doing problems. So once we found a problem with a decimal, we do want to convert it back to a percent because we were asked for a percent. So to convert back, move it 2 over, so 9.65%. Okay. And then again, if you have the hang of it, go ahead and try on your own, pause. If not, keep watching. So here's our next one. I'm going to do a direct translation. So it's 7.2 is that equal sign. Remember that part? And then we're going to put the 18% as a decimal. So that means go 1, 2, and then of what number? And I want you to stop and think for a second. Am I looking for a bigger number or a smaller number here to make sure I've set it up correctly? If I'm looking for 18% being 7.2, then I'm looking for the big number. So when I'm working these out, I kind of like to think I'm looking for a bigger number here. Over here, it was what, 60% of 22? So I was looking for a smaller number. So always kind of think of that number sense. What am I looking for as I'm solving problems? So down here, we're going to divide by our 0.18 on both sides. And we should be coming up with 40 as our answer. And again, grab that calculator out, do 7.2 divided by 0.18 to figure that out. Okay, I'm going to clear this for a second and scroll down. Okay, so our last one, just wanted a little space for that. So for the last one, it's what is 110% of 250? And I want us to think again. I'm looking for 110%. That's more than the whole. I'm looking for a number that's bigger than 250. So just, again, making sure that I set it up correctly. How is this working? I'm looking for something bigger. All right, so now we can take a look at how to set this up. What is, and this time when we convert it, it's going to be a whole number, 1.10 of 250. So just as a quick note, 110%, 1, 2, turns it into 1.1. And then the of was my multiplication and the 250. So straight multiplication, when I do that, we come up with 275 is the answer, which if you're asking for a bigger number, fits perfectly. All right, pause if you need to. Otherwise, I am clearing. Okay, for this algebra review, I want you to go ahead and try it on your own. And then if you have questions, that's a good one to go over in class or to look at the key and see. So for this one, let's jump into these word problems with percents. So some of them are going to use proportions, direct proportions, algebra problems like above. But basically, we're taking the questions that you had seen up just in the last example, and we're turning them into word problems. So we're going to use what we were just going through to figure it out. So if I pick through this one, 27% of, I'm going to immediately translate that. 27% gets translated to 0.27. The of turns into a multiplication, and then 4126. So it says 27% of this number work full-time. Okay, how many students work full-time? So that's the same as saying is equal to your full-time workers. So that 27% are our full-time workers at John Tyler, which I'm going to call X. So that was a fancy way of saying what is 27%. And then we do that direct multiplication, and you come up with 1114.02. Here's where you want to think for a second. How many students work full-time? You would answer this in whole students. So I would use regular rounding, round down, and we're going to have about 1,114 students working full-time. Okay. So far, so good. Anytime, pause. Great. So this next one is before giving a family a mortgage to buy a home. Let's payment can be no more than 28%. So let's assume 28%. What's the max we can do? And then if a monthly payment is $1,600, what must their income be? So I'm going to go back to those 4 steps of problem solving from the initial packet. And let's go with summarize. What is this saying? Okay, this is saying that the monthly income monthly payment, my apologies, that the monthly payment is equal to 28% of your monthly income. Now we can translate that. So then I'm going to come back over here and let's translate that into a sentence. Okay, so monthly payment, which is $1,600, is 28% of whatever that monthly income is, and we don't know that. So summarizing, the monthly payment is 28% of the monthly income, and then we know the payment, we have the is, and we know it's 28% of some monthly income. So what we can do now is we can solve it. Okay. So what that gives us is that your monthly income is somewhere in the ballpark, because it's money, of 2 decimals, somewhere out of $5,714.29. All right, if you want to pause a minute, go ahead and try number 5. And I am going to clear this. Okay, give you a second to read it. Okay, so we have when Circuit City went out of business, they were offering 40% on some items. And then we wanted a Blu-ray player priced at $350, on and on and on. Okay, so let's figure out again, what is this asking us? We're starting with a Blu-ray player at $350. We're getting 40% off, and we want to know what that price would be. We want the total bill, which includes sales tax. Okay, so let's look at this a couple ways. Your original Blu-ray player was $350. Okay, $350 times 40% gives you your discount. And how we know that is they're saying 40% of $350. 40% of $350. Okay, so where are we calculating that so we can figure out how much we're getting off? So the discount is $140. That's not the price you're paying. We're paying $350 minus the 140, which is $210. Now, a slightly different way we could have done this is if you think about if I'm getting 40% off, then I'm paying 60% of the total price. So we also could have done 60 times 350 to get the 210. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. Either way, we pay the tax on the 210, not on the 350. So here's our 210, and now we need to add the sales tax. So sales tax is 6%. So converting the 6% to a decimal is 0.06. So adding those numbers together, we get 210 plus 1260, which is a total of $222.60 for that final price of that Blu-ray player. Using that idea, I want you to think about this next one, which is example 6, which is this question of if the school bookstore marks up, how much are you paying, etc. So let's take a look. Pause me if you need to. I'm about to clear off everything. Okay. All right, so taking a look at this one. Again, I want you to pause and think about this one and try to solve it on your own first. But if not, the school bookstore has marked up your price 25% and you paid $75. So let's think for a second. There's the price of the book that the school bookstore paid. And then they added the markup. And then that markup is what you pay. So let's kind of take a look at that before we figure this out. So how much did the school bookstore pay? That's what we don't know. So when we go to figure it out, we're trying to figure out price school paid, which I'm going to call X. The markup was 25% of that price, and that equals the $75 you paid. Now there's a 1 in front of that, so that gives me 1.25x is equal to 75. And when I divide that, that ends up giving me my price that I actually paid, the price that the bookstore paid, which is $60. Now it does not work to just take 25% of the 75. That will give you a wrong answer. 6250 is incorrect. And then you've got a couple others to kind of think about. I like to discuss this one. Look for it in class or in a discussion board. If you're willing to take a pay cut, knowing that you'll get a pay increase later. So that's all I have for you. You're now ready to do homework 1.